Seemingly every year with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, San Francisco goes through a coaching carousel. Perhaps the biggest ticket piece in this aspect was bringing in Nick Sorensen to replace Steve Wilks as their defensive coordinator. But San Francisco didn't stop there. Today they brought in Mick Lombardi. So while this isn't the Lombardi Niners fans were looking for, it's the Lombardi they have. While San Francisco hasn't announced the role for Mick Lombardi just yet, it does look like he's going to be replacing a longtime pass coordinator Klint Kubiak, who became the offensive coordinator for the Saints this offseason. In addition to that, San Francisco brought in KJ Wright to become their assistant linebacker coach after the Seahawks turned him down. So in this video, I want to examine the impact of both of these additions, starting out with Mick Lombardi. Last season, Lombardi held the title as offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders, but he wasn't really the one calling the plays, that was McDaniels. Essentially, he was doing what he'll be doing for San Francisco. All the grunt work, for the lack of a better term. And I'm not trying to insult Lombardi here, but I'm just trying to highlight the fact that sure, he could help design plays or give his thoughts about certain decisions, but at the end of the day, the final decision came down to McDaniels. In a similar way, it's going to come down to Kyle in San Francisco. Lombardi's time as an offensive coordinator was pretty short-lived, only spending 1 year with the Las Vegas Raiders. He started his career interesting enough with San Francisco back in 2013 with Harbaugh. During this time, he was assistant head coach, offensive assistant, defensive assistant, and offensive quality control coach. Once Kyle Shanahan came in 2017 though, Lombardi left to go off to the New York Jets from 2017 to 2019, where he spent his time there as offensive assistant. He then moved on to New England from 2019 to 2021. During this time with New England, he was assistant quarterbacks coach and receivers coach. He then went on to the Raiders and then back to San Francisco, which brings us back to present day. And that brings us to our biggest question. What will Lombardi offer this team? The first thing that stood out to me about Mick, and probably Kyle, was how he had experience all over the football field. He coached on the offense and defensive side of the ball, and ultimately, I think this makes you much more refined as a coach. You have perspectives from the offense and defensive side, so you understand the philosophies going into both sides' decisions, and then you can exploit their weaknesses based on where you're coaching. So in a similar way, Kyle Shanahan brought in Nick Sorensen, a quarterback turned defensive coordinator. He brought in Mick Lombardi, someone with a lot of experience on the defensive side of the ball as well as offensive side of the ball, to really give him a full understanding of the football field. And when you're looking at the potential role Mick Lombardi is looking to fill, pass game coordinator, it makes a lot more sense why Kyle Shanahan would be looking for a guy like this. He's going to understand coverages a lot more than someone just coming from the offensive side, and also have the ability to design some pretty nifty routes. And for Mick, you couldn't ask for a better opportunity. Now he has a chance to learn from one of the better play callers in the entire league. And after a couple of years, he could definitely move on to become an offensive coordinator, much like Klint Kubiak did. But that's not the only coaching move I'm focusing on in this video. Now moving on to the much more controversial move San Francisco made, they brought in longtime rival KJ Wright to become their assistant linebackers coach. Initially when I looked at this signing, it made so much sense, I couldn't believe Seahawks didn't want to bring him in for a coaching job. For San Francisco, he was one of the core players that made Seattle's scheme adopted throughout the league. In addition to that, he enters a room coached by Johnny Hollins, who was able to develop guys like Azeez, Dre Greenlaw, and Fred Warner. In addition to that, when you look at coaches coming out of San Francisco, guys like D'Amico Ryans, they have tons of success, and something they have in common with KJ Wright, they're player coaches. And even though it's Wright's first year coaching, I think this transition is perfect for him. He goes from Seattle going into San Francisco to coach, and it's almost the same scheme he played. So now he'll be able to give his perspective and things that work for him on the field. And while there's a lot of reasons to be positive about this KJ Wright signing, there's still one big question mark on San Francisco's linebacker roster: the injury to Dre Greenlaw. He probably won't be ready to start the year, which means it's going to be up to Johnny Hollins and KJ Wright to find a potential replacement early on in the season. Some intriguing names I have in mind are guys like Jalen Graham and Dee Winters, but ultimately it'll be up to Johnny Hollins and KJ Wright how much they actually get out of these guys. Ultimately, under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they have been able to consistently bring in coaches who enjoy a great level of success. And with the additions of KJ Wright and Mick Lombardi, I don't see this trend changing. But ultimately, these are just my thoughts on these new coaching additions, and I'd like to get your thoughts down below. It would also mean a ton to me if you liked and subscribed, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.